morning. This is Anna Patterson with the North Carolina Housing Coalition. Thank you for joining us this morning for our housing call. And without further ado, I will turn it over to our Director of Housing Policy, Stephanie Watkins Cruz.
So we have the Helene anniversary interview, our survey, and we are also going to just highlight some of the as we loom towards a federal government shutdown. There's still no federal budget. But before we get into those updates, we're going to go ahead and kick off our interview. I'm going to introduce Carmen and then start the interview. So, Carmen Ibarra serves as the Director of Systems and Engagement with Swannanoa Communities Together, which is a grassroots effort helping Swannanoa residents recover after Hurricane Helene. She brings both systems expertise and on the ground organizing experience to strengthen housing access, rental assistance, and long term community driven solutions. As the 1 year anniversary of Helene's devastation in Western North Carolina nears, we are spending some time this week and moving forward, recognizing and re recognizing important people and organizations doing housing work in the ecosystem dedicated to recovery in Western North Carolina. So again, this morning we are joined by Carmen Ibarra. Thank you so much, Carmen, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for allowing me to talk about planning on communities together.
Well, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Can you start by telling us a bit about yourself and your organization, Swannanoa Communities Together?
I'd love to. So, like Stephanie said, my name is Carmen Ibarra. I have lived in Western North Carolina for about 13 years. Prior to being involved with Swannanoa Communities Together, I worked for Just Economics, a local organization. And 6 weeks after Helene hit, this organization was started by Beth Trigg and Mary Eldridge Trigg, sisters who saw that this need was going to continue. And at that point, my director at Just Economics allowed me to shift gears and come here and work in this capacity that I'm in now. And kind of juggle both roles until I came here. And so, much like you said, Swannanoa Communities Together, we help people in the Swannanoa Valley, offering direct assistance to many basic needs.
Thank you so much. So, one of the 5 core priorities of Swannanoa Communities Together is housing stabilization and preventing displacement. So, can you tell us a bit more about the approach that you all use, about the housing efforts, and what sort of barriers and challenges and needs that are you seeing? And of course, not just talking about the negative, but if there are any successes related to your housing work that you'd like to share as well.
Of course. And with housing being one of our priorities, I would say it is the thing that people need assistance with the most here in the area. It's basically 1 in 3 homes were either destroyed, made uninhabitable, or required um, a lot of repairs. And so people often will come and they have either been living in with families, and a year later, if you live with families, your family really uh, is kind of at their max as far as how much more people they can have in their home. We still have people coming in, living in their cars. We have people who have been in inadequate housing, and if you're a renter, maybe the landlord didn't do the repairs. And so when they come in, we're able to assess their needs. Okay, do you need emergency shelter? Let's get you into a motel. Do you need to find housing, like stable housing? Okay, we can help you with your deposit or with rent support. And as far as a lot of people, a year out, people have dwindled any savings that they ever had. They've eliminated them. And so some people now still are facing eviction. And so we do what we can to prevent evictions, and if an eviction has been filed, we do what we can to support those people to either stay in their homes or find new housing if that's the route they have to take. And successes, I think one for me, the biggest successes we've placed so many families or assisted in putting people in permanent homes. Um, we've gotten so many people out of their cars, out of tents. And I think, the biggest successes are when people come in and you see just the relief on their face, and being able to know that we were a part of that is hugely gratifying, and it's one of the biggest successes, every individual that we're able to help stabilize their housing.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Can you tell us, what does long-term recovery look like to you? We know that it's only been a year, and then there's a lot more that still needs to be done. So what is needed? What are some of the needs that you're seeing? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. I think, the main thing is affordable, adequate, safe housing. I think pretty much like everywhere in North Carolina, we were already in a housing crisis. And when you eliminate so many houses, a big percentage of the homes that were available, it makes it harder for people to try to find homes here. A lot of people have their kids in schools here. You know, we don't want to move out of this area. And so I think the biggest challenge is in being able to access housing that people can afford. And, we support people with housing, but the affordability has become an insurmountable obstacle. And so I think affordable housing, adequate housing, ample housing. So I think that that's if I could say the one thing that's needed as far as our organization, what we need is funds. We want to be able to maintain this level of service, and long term recovery it takes decades, simply put. If you think of one individual who lost their home, they lost everything. You've spent however long you are putting your life together, and it all gets pulled out. So we're very concerned also with the community sort of healing process that happens. And that's also a very important aspect of what we work on with housing, because it's not just like you lost your home, let's get you into a house. Like, what's going to make your house a home? Like, how can we support that? How can we build community to make you feel like you're engaged again in, say, a different community in Swannanoa or in the Swannanoa Valley?
Wonderful. Exactly. And I want to expand on that a little bit. Can you talk to us a bit about what you see as the importance of amplifying marginalized communities, and the way you and in your work, the commitment to language justice, and how language justice in the recovery process it matters?
Yes. So, I think what happens in most areas is you have a community, the Swannanoa Valley, and then you have little pockets of areas, right? Those areas are communities within the community. And we very much recognize and appreciate that each one brings a certain thing. And when you begin to look at these communities, there'll be communities that will have maybe foreign language speakers. And so then what happens is a lot of time with recovery, the sort of all encompassing or overarching tends to have trouble maybe and leaves certain segments of the population out. For us, it's always been really important to make everyone feel welcome and supported. I was the first person who worked here besides Mary and Beth, and I'm a Spanish speaker. And out of the 7 of us that work here, 2 of us are Spanish speakers. And we are able to reach out to the community, and make sure that everybody's voices, are heard and that more people know about us through language justice and focusing on making all of our materials in English and Spanish, making sure we actually have it translated into several languages, which we've never utilized, but they're there, so that if people came in and spoke Russian or Ukrainian or Thai, we have everything translated into like our documents translated. We may not speak it, but we'll figure out a way.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you for spending time with us this morning and talking about this, especially on a heavy week. Um, I'm really, when learning about your approach to recovery and to assistance, I can't help but just think about how thankful people must be to have such a low barrier, kind of trusted community resource and organization. So, thank you so much for the work that you do, and I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad your staff is okay. Um, I'm going to ask one more question, kind of two parts. But I would love for you to tell folks how can they support Swannanoa Communities Together's work, and feel free to add anything else you'd like people to know.
Sure. Thank you. So supporting our work, like I said, financially, that would be the biggest assistance for us to be able to put it out. There's very few delays in how long we try to get it out as fast as we get it. You could do so on the website. We have an active Facebook group or page. So if you could like and share any of our posts, that would be really helpful. And if you would just like to connect, you can do so. My email is carmen@swannanoacommunitiestogether.org.
Wonderful. Thank you, Carmen. So glad that you're able to join us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a beautiful day.
You too. And so, you all, if you are interested in learning a bit more or engaging more with Godman, she will actually also be at our conference coming up in a few weeks. We will be having a panel around disaster recovery at our fall conference. So, again, a big shout out to Carmen and Swannanoa Communities Together. If you haven't heard about their organization, we will make sure to link information in the call notes for you so you can check them out, learn a bit more about them, and support them if you're able to. Moving on to organizational updates, we want to thank those that attended our housing policy update webinar last week. But if you didn't get a chance to join us, don't worry. You can check out a recording of the webinar. We have a link in the call notes for you. And we also want to lift up our North Carolina Housing Coalition Network survey so that we can continue to improve our resource. We often take time around this time of year to really try and re-engage and understand where people are at, how we can continue to be a resource, a partner, and this survey asks a lot of questions around that as well. It's not super long, but it is really important to us. So please take a moment to fill it out when you are able. On the federal government side, the vote on the Republican-backed continuing resolution did pass in the House last week, but it did not have enough votes to move forward in the Senate, where it requires bipartisan support to pass with 60 votes. Democrats also introduced a continuing resolution, which also stalled in the Senate. And according to a news source, Politico, there is a meeting between Democratic congressional leadership and President Trump happening this week on Thursday to discuss government funding. So if a compromise stopgap spending bill isn't agreed on, we will end up having a government shutdown next week, which is looking increasingly possible. But as in years past, we've gotten really close. And we've seen things turn around. So kind of we're holding space for both. It is really unclear what a shutdown would mean for FEMA efforts in Western North Carolina, other than continued delays and chaos. So we hope that that is not what happens, and that we can continue moving forward and get the support needed for those recovery efforts. On the state side, the General Assembly is back this week. They convened yesterday and are convening today. Yesterday, the Senate passed the House version of House Bill 926, titled a Regulatory Reform Bill, which was updated to include several land use reform items, which is why we were looking at it and watching it closely. Several of the items were included in Senate Bill 205, as well as House Bill 765, which are some of the bigger land use bills earlier this session. However, in the regulatory reform bill, the pieces from those other bills that were actually included mostly apply to wastewater permitting, to permit choice invested rights, as well as quasi-judicial zoning decisions with pieces of land or parcels that are within multiple jurisdictions. We are also keeping an eye on tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., the Joint Governmental Operations Committee on Hurricane Recovery and Resilience will be meeting. And so we are keeping an eye on that agenda, likely looking for an update on what has happened so far with recovery efforts and what is needed moving forward. We have a lot of reports, events, and resources for you all in the call notes. As always, we want to lift up that we look forward to seeing you on September 30th and October 1st at the Raleigh Convention Center for our 2025 North Carolina Affordable Housing Conference. So if you haven't already registered, please make sure you have done so. And if not, we will catch you next year. And with that, I'll let you all go. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Another big thank you to Codman and Yvara, and we will talk to you next time.